Okay, so I know we just had the lab practical today, so you guys have been probably focusing a lot on that versus lecture. However, I think we certainly can talk about lecture or lab stuff. We're scheduled to be doing the tissues chapter this week, which is chapter 5. So maybe we can open it up for questions related to tissues, of which there are some Zoom lectures posted in the course shell, right? And having just talked about this the last 2 weeks in lab, it should be a nice counterpoint to what was presented in the Zoom lectures. So tell me where you are with chapter 5, what you'd like to go over, review.
I just had a quick question real quick.
Mhm.
So it says we have a lecture 2 exam next week. Is that going to be on chapter 5 then?
Lecture 2 quiz?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's take a look at the schedule. So I would say that lecture quiz number 2 on the 3rd, how about if we have that be over the tissues chapter, even though we will be into integumentary technically next week. We really haven't had any evaluation on tissues yet, and we won't in lab until in 2 weeks from now. So how's that? I know that's a whole chapter, but that seems like maybe the way we should go. So does everybody know what Sadie was asking? So next week in lab on the 3rd, we have lecture quiz number 2 listed in yellow boldface. And she was asking, what will that be over? Lecture quiz number 2. And I'm suggesting it be over chapter 5, tissues. Even though we will be in 6 by next Wednesday. Any questions on that?
Yeah, I know you did say this. I just want to make sure I heard that I had it right. As far as like the exocrine glandular secretions, did you say like that there's a table on 160 in the book, for instance, 5.4. It's just the merocrine, apocrine. We don't really need to know the details of that, or just kind of, or we do. I thought that you said we didn't need to go into that, or
no, you under the glandular epithelium section.
Yeah.
If you follow the PowerPoint
okay,
slide and lecture,
right,
it delineates exocrine from endocrine glands,
right,
defines the difference between those two.
Right. Okay.
But I did not go into
Right.
merocrine, apocrine, holocrine.
Okay.
Now, when we get into the integumentary system, I will mention apocrine, but let's put that off until chapter 6. And then as far as the table 5.3, where they discuss unicellular, multicellular glands and examples of those, don't worry about that table. And don't worry about figure 513.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Sure. Again, the lecture PowerPoints and the PowerPoints themselves should be guiding your studies. In terms of what do I need to know and how much do I need to know of this particular topic or what have you. There are occasions when I might ask you to read something that I just don't have time to go into, for example, but I would verbally say that. Now, keep in mind that the clinical application boxes, we said from the get-go, are fair game. You should be looking at those and reading those. I don't typically lecture on those. The same applies to the from science to technology boxes. They're occasionally a little, purple highlighted sections like you see here. So, yeah. Other questions? Anything you want to bring up? So we're clear on the lab or the lecture quiz 2 next week in lab. How about questions on tissues? Could be stuff we talked about today. Could be stuff that was presented in the lecture, Zoom lecture. This chapter is there's a lot of information in it, as do all the chapters, I guess. But in terms of page numbers, it's not the thickest chapter in the world. I think, when you do the math, it's like 23 pages long, which isn't too bad. A lot of those are diagrams too. Oh, the other thing that I wanted to mention before I forgot, I will make a note to provide. Who's Mickey Mousing? Is that you, John?
John's chipmunking again.
Yeah. Slow down, I don't understand you. John, you're gonna have to go out and come back in. That's the only way we can change your voice. I was just gonna say, I will let, my mind is going. What's our tutor, Sunday night tutor?
Kira?
Kira, yeah. I'm going to give her a copy of the exam so that if you come Sunday night, you could ask her to go over any of those questions. Somebody asked me to do that, so I'm going to make a note to send her the lecture exam number 1. So I wanted to let you know that. Okay, John, go ahead.
Do I sound normal now?
You do.
All right. So I noticed that on page 173, where it talks about the nerves, that diagram, I don't see where it says ions.
Axon?
Or exons, yeah.
Yeah, right. They don't. You're exactly right. They don't, for some unknown reason, they don't label the dendrites, nor do they label the axon. I don't know why they don't. You certainly could do that. It could be simply because, this is probably why they don't. If you look at the photograph on the right, similar to what we saw in lab when I put those slides or that slide up on the micro video system. Remember me saying to you that while we can see the cell body that contains the nucleus and nucleolus, we can't for sure define which of those cellular processes were dendrites and which one was the axon.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the same may apply to their diagram, although generally the axon is a much longer extensive structure coming from the cell body. So I would argue on that diagram that in the lower half of it, on the left side, that yellow that splits would be the axon, and those that are closer to the cell body would be the dendrites. don't worry about that. I'm not going to ask you to label a multipolar neuron. I just wanted to throw that out because when you get to ANP2, you'll be spending, I think, a month on the nervous system. The book has 2 chapters. It's such a big system. You're going to be hearing more about the anatomy of a neuron and all that. So don't even worry about having to label it. I just wanted to throw it out so you have some semblance of what a multipolar neuron looks like and kind of what it does. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah. They do define dendrites and axons in the narrative there, which I think you can all appreciate what they're trying to say, given my wonderful sketch I put on the whiteboard, right? How about other questions? So this week you've been studying, or we're studying for the practical. Last week you were studying for the lecture exam. So you're all saying, I need a break. Yeah.
That happened.
Before it all starts again, right? Yeah.
When does that happen? Does that happen?
What?
No,
Never end?
it don't. Yeah, it don't
Never
happen.
ends. Never ends. So I tell my kids when they were little, I said, enjoy your childhood. When you get old, you can work. You can work till you're blue in the face. I mean, working's good, but I think kids need to be kids too. Right?
Yeah, school's like a 9-to-5 job from the age of 5, you know?
Yeah. I remember my girls when they were in high school, they had, I'm not kidding you, they had 3 hours of homework every single night. Every night they had homework. And at the time, I thought it was excessive. However, when they got out of high school, the transition into college was effortless in terms of they had a good study
Habit.
habits and a good mental ability and all that stuff. So it was in the long run, it really helped them out a lot.
Right. Yeah, I feel like our high school just was off slacked. They actually are rated awful in math. Bradford is. You know, I had to take like non-college level classes to even catch up when I was in college. So I wish I would have had homework.
My son, my youngest son, he has so much homework and so much study that by the time he's finished with high school, he'll already have earned his associate's degree.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard of that.
It's insane.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I already got my like first 2 semesters of college done in high school, taking like super classes and classes through Niagara in high school.
Yep.
Awesome, Sadie.
Yeah. So, yeah.
It's insane.
See, I wasn't even focused on that kind of stuff
No.
in high school. I needed to be slapped around a little. My poor parents.
Anything that you want to review in tissues? Any questions on tissues? Because that's kind of where we are. Again, it's possible you just haven't put much time into it yet because you were focusing on other stuff.
And plus, it's body.
I will say that in terms of the slides that we looked at today on connective muscle and the one nervous tissue slide, like the epithelial tissue slides, the best way to really get comfortable with identifying or differentiating one connective tissue from another under the microscope is to just put the time in and look at the slides enough times, and make sketches, as I've always said. And so remember, the room is open on Tuesday. If you want to, come in ever and review any of the slides or models, that's available for you to do. And there's something to be said for, getting these topics down kind of firmly before you hear a whole new set of topics. So like next week we do integumentary system. We start a couple bone exercises and we start learning some skull bones. And then the following week on the 10th, we do a whole bunch of additional bones of the body. So if you don't have to worry about tissues, because you've put the time into looking at the slides a couple of times and you feel reasonably comfortable with the tissues, then that's one thing you can check off the list, so to speak. If you don't really kind of like hit it hard each week, then it becomes a bit overwhelming, I would think. So I think the divide and conquer approach is always the smartest way to do it, whether it's A&P or history or psych or English or whatever the discipline is. Just try to keep up, try to cement it as best you can, because the next week you're going to be throwing a whole bunch of other new stuff. And if something's not making sense, ask then. Get the answer to the question sooner than later, so to speak. Nothing wrong with asking questions anytime, but I just think with A&P especially, if you're weak on tissues and you just blow it off and say, I'll study for it the week before the next practical, and then you get 8,000 bones, well, actually 206 bones to learn, and all the different foramen and foramina and tuberosities and all this sort of stuff you're going to be hearing about. It can grow into this huge mountain, and we don't want it to be overwhelming. So I just think bite-sized pieces, review, and just keep hitting it. It's like a marathon. You just got to keep on trucking.
In the clinical application 5.1 about the extracellular matrix, and like the diseases that can occur.
Mm-hmm.
So it says like the cancer, I was just blown away by this. About it, well, first it dissolves the basement membrane. So it's saying that because these cells are able to move around, and then the cancer ones are also able to move around, that makes it easier for the cancer to spread, because it can sort of like push things out of the way in a sense. And then okay, so then it says the cancerous growth takes advantage of the normal ability of fibroblasts to contract as they close a wound, where they are replaced with normal epithelium. So are they imitating fibroblasts, or are they converting our fibroblasts to kind of do their work? Like chemical signal from cancer cell makes the fibroblast move. Okay, more contractile and more like cancer cells.
Yeah,
So
they don't convert them into cancer cells.
Okay. They send them signals that fools them and makes them sort of act for them.
Well, or act in a way that they wouldn't ordinarily act.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about how cancer is often involved with a cell that becomes mutated.
Right.
Right, because that's what cancer arises from, comes from normal cells that start to act weird, that begin to divide uncontrollably, that don't obey the stop signs or stop lights, right? They get green lights all along the regulatory process. Yeah. And that's just scratching the surface of what they do. So this gets at the idea of how they can spread, as you mentioned a moment ago. One way is to dissolve that basement membrane, which remember is between the overlying epithelial tissue and the underlying connective tissue. So one trait of malignancy is the ability to metastasize or spread, right? And one way to do that is to dissolve the basement membrane, right, as they mentioned. They also mention here how they produce fewer adhesion proteins or none at all. So they're not sticking to other cells. They're more able to slide around or slip out and go wherever they want to go, spreading, basically metastasizing. And then they specifically cite how some growth of cancers take advantage of, as they say here, quotes, the normal ability of the fibroblast to contract to close a wound, but that chemicals released from cancer cells make these fibroblasts not function in the way they're supposed to. So they're sending out chemical signals that impact healthy cells, but to the advantage of the cancer cells in terms of its ability to spread. Cancer loves to spread. That's the goal, to spread. And then, of course, angiogenesis, meaning to create their own blood vessels, allowing them to gain nutrients from the host, i.e. the patient, you, me, and that further adds fuel to the fire in terms of, well, if there's more food, then I can divide more quickly and more efficiently, and then I can spread more because I have more cancer. It is a positive feedback loop in that sense. It's promoting that process, and we're going away from homeostasis, of course, as that happens. Now, you won't ever read about positive feedback in cancer, probably, but as I'm talking about it, it's really what it is. It's just promoting further deviation from the stable internal state we know that homeostasis is. Cancer biology is complex, but it's fascinating to study. And again, another topic for a potential paper. My gosh, there's just a zillion things. Regulatory mechanisms and how they don't function in cancer cases or something. You know? Yeah.
That's crazy. That's just crazy.
It is. Yeah. And if nothing else, a course like this gets you to see that, think about it, and say to yourself, wow, that is amazing. Just like you were doing, Freya. That's the whole idea of college, right? Is to subject us to other ways of thinking and open our minds a little bit. That's really the goal of why you go to school. Of course, get a degree and get to where you want to go in terms of a discipline. But in a broader sense, I think people that go to school and take a variety of classes just are so much more broad,
well-rounded, and
yeah. And how do you explain that to somebody who may have not gone? They don't understand that concept. And I'm not belittling them. That's not what I'm saying. But you've got to experience it to know what it is.
right. I feel like high school, the way we educate, in high school and below or whatever, it doesn't reflect how awesome college is. So the people that haven't gone, they think of education as the way it was in high school, where there's 25 kids in a class and the teacher can't, I just feel like if they just had a taste of it, they'd feel differently,
Which is certainly not to say that the trade schools or that you have to go to college to be successful, and that's of course
no,
not at all.
But a lot of times, because they choose to be that way, it can be periods where I lose my patience.
Well,
because in a court of law, right? In a court of law, ignorance is no excuse.
That's true. Okay, well, coming back to E&P.
Right.
Anything you want to ask about with respect to chapter 5 stuff?
Sorry.
No, yeah.
I have a regular class question.
Yeah.
When I'm sure I probably should just look at the syllabus, but say we're chugging along and we're doing great in our final exam, we just bomb it. When is the last date we can do the extra credit essay?
Okay, so according to the syllabus,
Find my syllabus.
yeah, it's indicating that if you're going to do a paper, you need to okay the topic by April 21st, and that the paper is due on May 5th. No, the only reason that I have that April 21st deadline, the only reason for that is to spur the student to make a commitment, at least verbally, by that time. You can start to do the paper next Tuesday if you want to start it, right? But if you wait until much after the 21st, there's about 3 weeks or maybe a little bit more of the semester left after the 21st of April. So in my mind, that gives you enough time to get it done by the end of the semester. So that's why the deadline of the okaying the topic is there. The actual paper has to be handed in by the 5th of May so that I have ample time to read it or read them, there's not just one, and get a grade determined before we get into the last week of classes. So to answer your question, Paige, the last exam date is the 12th of May, and the paper is due the preceding week on the 5th, because I need time to correct it. So you don't have the luxury of seeing how did I do on all 4 exams, and then if I need the paper, I can do it, because there's not enough time for you to write it, and there's not enough time for me to correct it in one day. So you have to kind of make the commitment.
Well,
either I'm going to do it,
and
or
we
I'm
should
not.
know. Well, and we should know, you know, like if we bomb this test, I'm definitely going to fail. Then you should probably do an essay like by that point.
I would say by the time we get to the 3rd exam, which I'll tell you the date on that in just a second here. The 3rd exam is April 28th. Okay. The following week is the 5th. So if you're the type that likes to procrastinate, and I'm sure it's not any of you guys, you theoretically, even though you haven't okayed your topic at the time I asked you to, you could make that decision after the 3rd exam, but you only have a week to do the paper. So that's not very much time to do the paper. I think you need to make that commitment by the end of April. Remember, doing the research paper, the extra credit research paper, is just icing on the cake. It's extra points. It's not going to hurt you. Now, yes, you got to put the time into writing it and researching it. I get that. But wouldn't you hate to be the student that gets done with the 4th exam and the 3rd practical and all the points get tallied up and you're sitting at let's just say you're sitting at 450 points. Just pick a number, 450. That's 19 points away from the next grade up. So instead of a C, you're going to get a D+. I'm just picking a number. Had you done the paper and did a good job in the paper, you'd be sitting at a C grade. You know, I just think you need to think about that a little bit. It's also possible that the paper might not make any difference to your grade. It's possible that could happen, but it's not going to pull you down, right? Most of these point spreads, as I look at them, most of them are about 35 point spreads, 32 to 35. So if the paper is worth 25, there's a good chance, there's a more than 50% chance that could pop you up to the next grade level or half a grade level. It won't take you a full grade up, but it'll take you from a plus to a regular, like C+ to B, or B+ to A, or D+ to C. It won't take you from a C to a B. There's not enough points to do that. But it'll bump you up the next half grade. Do you know what I mean? Okay.
Oh, and I'm looking at your rubric right now, and it says only 1 page. I was thinking it was going to be like an 8-page research paper. Okay, so that's like totally doable.
Oh, well, okay, well, wait. Stop. Where did it say 1 page?
Okay. On
That's
your
what the-
guidelines for writing a paper.
Doesn't it say 5 pages at least, I thought?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm looking at the wrong thing, because this just says guidelines for writing a paper under content.
Well, that particular document in Blackboard, let me pull it up here.
Oh, yeah. I was looking at the.
Let me pull it up so we're all on the same page. Y'all see that?
That's yeah. Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
All right, so Paige, where are you at now? Right here. This
It was guidelines to use when writing a research paper.
Okay. Is it popping up on your screen? Am I sharing it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I don't see it.
It was up.
When you go to AMP and click content, it'll be right in that
Yeah,
list.
now I see it.
Okay. So I just pulled it up. And as I said, this is general guidelines. Usually 1 page equals 250 words, blah, blah, blah. This is not saying that the extra credit paper should be 1 page long.
Oh, okay.
These are general guidelines, general to writing any paper, whether it's for biochem, history, psychology, whatever. That's all this is something to be mindful of, which you should already know because you've had Comp 1 and 2. Right?
We do it in APA style, correct?
Can we do that in APA?
You can do APA if you want.
Yes.
Oh, we can't. We're allowed to do MLA though.
Either one. I'll let you.
Oh,
I'd
nice.
rather do APA is better.
Oh, I like it.
So Paige, are we clear on the fact that the extra credit paper is not 1 page?
Okay. Yep. I was thinking that was a guideline for just that paper.
No, I'm really glad we talked about this because
Me
I
too.
wanted to solve that myth right off the bat. If you go to the syllabus, I think it specifically doesn't list pages per se. It does say minimum of 5 sources. And so if you were to ask me, well, how long does that paper have to be? And people always do ask that question, so I might as well just answer it right now. I would expect that this extra credit research paper, not including the cover sheet and the list of works cited / bibliography page, right? In other words, the meat of the paper would be at least, I would say, 6 to 8 typewritten pages. I mean, that's not huge, but it's more than one. In fact, it's 6 to 8 times as big. Yeah.
So how much is cited? Like, what's the percentage of my text versus cited text when writing a paper?
Say that one more time.
So if I had to do it in percentages, how much of it is my own writing versus?
Oh. Well, I'll just say,
because we're not scholars with this stuff, right?
You don't want to be turning in a paper.
Right.
I've seen them where there are endless block quotes from all sources, and the only sentence that the person puts is, "And I learned so damn much at the end." You know what I'm saying? No, I'm being facetious here, but you do not want to go down that road,
right,
of a ton of quotes from because that tells me you've just strung a bunch of stuff together in an effort to get the paper done. I mean, come on, I'm not dumb. You've got to put some synthesis and some thought into this. Again, you've all had Comp 1 and Comp 2, right?
Yeah, but see, what because of my other classes, because I'm a cross-registered student, they give us a percentage of how much can be cited and how much can be of our own text.
I don't know. I don't have a.
Okay.
I don't have a number. No one's ever asked me that question. I don't know.
Because I'm thinking if I choose any one of these topics, I can only say so much about it, right?
Sure. Well, that's the case for anything, right? Unless you are an expert in beekeeping and you can write a lot yourself because you've learned a lot over the years. You know, I could write a lot, you know, in my own words because I've studied it a long time. But there's not many things I could just off the cuff write a big paper on without going to some sources. So when you choose your topic, you need to be mindful of the fact that you don't want to pick brain surgery as a topic, because there might be a lot of stuff there you don't even understand. Which is not to say you couldn't still do brain surgery, because you could still approach it from the viewpoint of, talking about the brain anatomy or talking about whatever, and pull in sources and interweave it into the paper.
Right.
So.
Do you have a limit, or it might be in here, I'm sorry. Is there like a number of sources that you know?
I say a minimum of 5.
5, okay, that's where I got 5, okay.
Now, I do also say in here, with no more than 4 electronic sources. I think, though, in today's world, it's probably unrealistic for me to expect that you can find a hard copy source, because everything is electronic. So I should probably update that specification blurb, if you will. As much as I hate to see students sit home and just surf and find whatever they can find as quick as they can, the reality is, especially with I guess COVID now too, more so, people don't know what this thing called a library is anymore, because we don't go to it anymore.
Or a card catalog.
It's really sort of sad.
It
But
is.
it is the world we live in, and it's technology, and there's nothing wrong with technology. And you can go to many library databases from the JCC library that are legitimate, and they're really great sources. And I hope some of you who've taken comp here understand what I'm saying.
Right.
Go to the JCC website. There's a lot of great links to wonderful databases, really great stuff. So I'm not going to necessarily hold you to having one hard copy source, but you need at least 5 sources. Yeah.
So if we finished it early, say, and we wanted you to proofread it, would you?
Well, I would look it over. I'm not going to look it over like I will when I correct it, but I'll be happy to give you some feedback. Yeah, that's not a problem.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else?
Do you have like any like special ways that you can like remember how to like put like each tissue and like where they go, like their location, like, because that's what I'm having trouble with.
There's no magic saying, or in my mind, I don't have any story to tell that helps you remember it. You know what I'm saying? I wish I did. I think for me, I've just worked with them long enough that I just kind of know that ligaments, for example, and tendons are made up of dense fibrous, which contain a lot of collagenous fibers, almost solely collagenous fibers, and therefore they're super, 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 super strong. And I also know that they don't get much blood supply, which is why they don't heal quickly once they're damaged. And you just kind of have to, I guess, know that or learn that. I think muscle tissues are much easier. Those aren't that tough. Fat's pretty easy. Bone's pretty easy. Areolar is kind of unique. Reticular is kind of unique. The cartilages aren't bad. So there's really, when you think about it, there's not a whole ton. There shouldn't be a whole ton, Sadie, that should cause you a lot of angst. But I can say that because, I've taught it forever, and you guys have maybe never heard of it before, so it's new to you. I do think that the book does a really
Sadie. Oh, I'm sorry. One
Oh,
thing that I do when I'm One thing that I do when I'm having a hard time remembering something is sometimes if you go to YouTube and type in like mnemonics for, you know, whatever subject you need, sometimes they have like fun little sayings or songs or whatever to help you remember. So sometimes that's helpful. I don't know if they've got tissues ones, but probably.
Okay, thank you.
Wonderful suggestion, Paige. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I was just going to say that I like how our textbook takes these different kinds of tissues, whether it's epithelial or connective or what have you, and they not only show you, you know, how it looks in terms of a actual histologic photo, you know, as well as the artist interpretation of that, but then they also will have a little insert and highlighted color of where in the body, you know, you could find the tissue. I just think that's very good. I really like how they do that. So as you're looking at this, you can kind of look at the diagram, and that might help you connect. Where do I go to find fat, or in this case, this is reticular, well, areolar. So that might be something to kind of, you know, be mindful of as you look at those photographs and diagrams. The other thing that I gave you on that tissue handout, if you recall, was the function and where in the body to go. So that single sheet is a nice reference to have too. But I don't have any special way of remembering it. If I did, I'd sure share it with you. Flashcards might be a good way to go, Sadie, for this particular chapter, actually. You could have a flashcard of each type of tissue and do that. There you go. See, great minds think alike. She's got a whole stack of them.
Yeah, I've like bought like, I don't know, probably like 600 of them already and went through them. I do it for my chemistry class too, so.
So can you hold up one of the tissue cards to let people see?
So here's the one that I did last night. So like I printed pictures out and then like on the back.
Yeah.
And then I have like separate ones, so like the definitions, and then I have ones that are just for like strictly locations.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
Oh, and then John's got it, same idea.
Yep.
Wow. I think you guys should go into business. Just drop out of school and make note cards to sell.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah.
That is fun. That's an idea. I thought about that as I was making this stuff.
Of course, all those diagrams are copyrighted, so you have to come up with your own diagrams. Yeah. Well, I do see lots of students with note cards. So they're the tried and true way of learning lots of stuff. As you said, chemistry and biology lends itself well to that. When my daughter was in OTA degree in Jamestown, she had a ton of note cards too. The nice thing about note cards is, you know, you have to create the note card, so you have to write it down. So that's one way of assimilating the material, learning it, is you're writing it, the definition of whatever, or where you find areolar connective tissue. You know, you're writing it on the card. So there's the visual learning, there's the writing learning, even talking it, speaking it out loud can be another way of cementing it into your head too. I'll tell you another way, a really good way to learn any topic, any discipline at all, is to teach it. And what I would have said to you if we were meeting under normal circumstances is I would suggest you guys, and I said this before actually, you try to get together some study groups, and you meet every week or every other day over in, well, what we now call the group study room, which is locked, unfortunately, but there's a big whiteboard there. And prior to COVID, A&P students would be in there constantly. And they'd be using that whiteboard to draw tissues or draw out the steps of the glycolysis pathway or whatever. And what I used to always tell students is, if you can get a small group, like 3 or 4 or 5 people, and then if you can be disciplined enough to trade off sort of roles as facilitators. In other words, maybe this Wednesday, you're in charge of reviewing the connective tissues. And so you teach it to your 3 or 4 friends. And then the next time somebody else does something, the more you can teach it or try to explain it, the more it gets cemented in your head. That's the best way often to learn something, is to have to do it or teach it.
And I feel like it's almost like you have to learn it in the form of a story. I try to turn things into a story, like that way. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, I had that silly metaphor with respect to NADH being the big school bus and FADH2 being the small shuttle bus. That's something that I came up with. And I thought to myself, that a student can relate to. Now, it's a silly, dumb example, maybe, but let me tell you, if you can understand, what is going on, you are light years ahead of most students who just see those 4 words, NADH, and they've learned about it, they know the definition of electron carrier, but that's all it is to them. Well, if you can put a picture with a name, NAD plus, empty school bus, NADH, full school bus, then you, like Freya said, you make up a story, you can explain it. That is fantastic. Yeah.
Or like, honestly, just, get the first, if it's like secretion, absorption, excretion, and protection, make up my husband and I sat here and made up sentences for them all night, and they're hilarious. I remember, that's how I remember some of it. They're hilarious, Maybe not, I won't say them on here.
I was gonna say.
I'm just kidding.
There's a mnemonic we used to use to remember the 12 cranial nerves. And there was the X-rated version and there was the G-rated version, or whatever. Not so much X-rated, but the version that you wouldn't talk to your 7-year-old about or whatever. But funny, silly stuff. But that's how you can remember some of that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I've had students even come up with their own mnemonics. I mean, I think some of you guys have even said, hey, this is the word I remember for the stages of mitosis, or this is the 5-word sentence or whatever. That's great. That's the way to do it. And as Paige suggested, going online and seeing if there's something out there on YouTube or whatever. There's a lot of wonderful things on the internet. I mean, really great things that can be helpful in learning. But you have a limited number of hours in a day and minutes in an hour and all that stuff, and you're busy people, and you've got to use your time as constructively as you can too. So that's always a bit of a limitation.
I wrote a 20-page paper using note cards. So this is paragraph 1, A, and this is paragraph 1B. So you got 3 paragraphs. And you just keep doing that until the paper is done. That way, if you need to make corrections to the paper, it's easier to do it this way than it is to be flipping back and forth through.
That's good. Anything else?
No.
Okay, well, I will let you guys go. definitely get into chapter 5 by the end of this week. Make it a goal. Because next week we start integumentary system, and we finally begin our survey of the 11 organ systems. You know, up to this point in time, we haven't done any organ systems yet. This has all been kind of leading up to that, but finally next week, integumentary. Okay, well, I'll be here till 2:30. You can hang around or whatever. Otherwise, I'll see you next week.
All right. See ya.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
sure.
Have a good day, everyone.
Yeah, me too.
So I just had a quick question then. So if we have a 90 leading up to the 4th exam, then we are exempt from the final. Right?
From the 4th exam, yeah.
The
So
4th
you-
exam.
Yeah, so you still have to take the 3rd practical.
Mhm.
I think the 3rd practical kind of ends the evaluations. So at that point in time, which would be toward the first part of May, when is the 4th practical? Blah, blah, blah.
512 is the 4th practical. Oh, wait, no. Practical number 3.
Right,
It
the
is
5th, the
5.
5th. So that's a Wednesday. So theoretically, if you took the practical on the 5th and you were on the cusp of the exemption, I would correct it that same day when you turned it in, and you would know before leaving the building on the 5th whether you needed to take the test on the 12th.
Okay. I'm really trying for it. So
Yeah, I know you are. Sadie, you're doing the best of anybody in class.
Thank
I have
you.
to tell you, and you're a hard worker. And are you going to be here next year?
I'll be in with you the fall, yeah.
I will just plant a thought in your brain, and that is, if you have any interest in tutoring in the Learning Center, I would be happy to pass your name on to Beth Lacey. You don't get paid a whole lot, but if that's something you entertain the thought of doing,
That's
we can
fine.
talk,
Yeah.
we can talk more about that later in the semester. But I feel comfortable that right now I know you enough and what you've done that you'd be a good tutor.
Yeah, I've been tutoring Kirei kind of.
Oh, have you?
I've been helping her out. John calls me like 5 times a day. I've been helping him a little bit too, and like telling him like what I've been doing. He didn't even know you had lecture videos until like last week.
You know what? Hang on one second. I'm going to stop recording here. I'll
Okay.
pop back in. Just hang on.